Hello and welcome everybody to another month's Rowing Chat. I can't believe a month's gone by since our last one. I'm online here in New Zealand and of course we've got our guest with us today. Hello, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I'm Esther Lofgren. I am on the U.S. women's rowing team. I've been on the team since 2006, and I was in the women's 8 in London in 2012 that won gold in a really awesome race. And I'm a big fan of Row Perfect, and happy to talk today with you and with everyone who's tuned in about just training, racing, nutrition, 2Ks, you name it.
Fantastic. So take us right back. Where did you first bump into rowing as a sport? You're a California girl. There's plenty of other sports going on there.
Right. Yeah. So I actually found, I think, almost every other one of those sports on my way to rowing. But my parents were actually elite rowers back in the 70s and 80s. Leading up to the 1984 Olympics, which were in Los Angeles, and that's kind of why my family ended up in California. But they were both very close to making the team, and then didn't. And so I kind of lucked out and came along in 1985, and tried lots of other sports. I played soccer for 12 years, and volleyball. I was really passionate about volleyball, and thankfully found my way into rowing as a tall girl who couldn't jump very high for volleyball. I started doing that as a high school sophomore. Really was not great when I started out, but was very excited by the sport, as most people are. And then ended up over the next couple of years getting good enough to be recruited, and ended up rowing at Harvard. And then my sophomore year I made the national team.
That's excellent. It's very interesting how you look back on your career, and it of course looks like a smooth transitional pathway up through all the layers, but of course you recognize retrospectively how much help you had and guidance from people like the Harvard coaching team who could direct you and make sure that you got noticed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that you realize as you go is how much of a help it is to when you're performing, to have coaches recognize you and facilitate things. And I think also as an athlete to realize the resources that you have, because most people who are passionate coaches or passionately involved in the sport really would like to help people. And so a lot of times as a young athlete you have people say, oh, if I can ever do anything to help, or things, or you just know someone knows so much about the sport, and you never think that it's okay to ask questions. And I love that you guys do things like the Rowing Chat, because it gives people the opportunity to actually ask those questions.
Thank you for the compliment. That's great. And we definitely know that we're hitting the right sort of note. There's a very nice message we got from a listener last month in Australia who said, my national federation isn't putting out this sort of opportunity, and you seem to be the only guys who are enabling us to ask what we want to have answered. So we're really glad to facilitate that, and it's great because if that brings more listeners in, then we get more questions.
Absolutely.
Now, tell me a little bit about your own rowing and sculling. Do you prefer sweep or do you prefer sculling?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think as an American, I'm obligated. No, I'm just kidding. No, I love both. For a while, I was not as excited about sculling because I wasn't as comfortable with it. I've spent the last year and a half focusing primarily on sculling, even though I started sculling when I was probably 15 or 16. And I even raced, the single and double and stuff in high school. I would say my favorite boat to row is the pair, probably, followed by, the 8 and the single. But I think the training that you can get out of the single is tremendous. In terms of being the boat in which you get better fastest, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I totally subscribe to that. Personally, I love pairs, but I do know people who wouldn't agree with that statement.
Yeah, well, my father was actually coached by a former national team rower and coach from Yugoslavia, and my dad always quotes him as saying, it's good because when it's going well, you think it's you, and when it's going badly, you think it's the other guy.
I think there's a whole psychology still to be written about the pair or.
Of course. But,
do you think there's a difference between sweep and sculling and what's better for your body?
Gosh, it's funny. I've been fairly lucky. I think the longer that you row sweep and you row on just one side, the more your body adapts to it, and you can also be more injured. I've rowed almost my entire career as a port. That's what I rowed at the Olympics. It's what I've rowed every national team sweeping that I've been on. And I can row starboard. I haven't raced it since college. But I think, sculling, you can put maybe more force on your body, but it's more symmetric. So I think that's been helpful for me to be training recently as I've been a little older and, still trying to keep up with training volume and everything. But yeah, I think especially when you're starting out and probably throughout, your rowing career, trying to take opportunities to, specialize, but also to diversify. So a coach I had a long time ago made the analogy that it's much better to be an adjustable wrench than a 10 millimeter wrench or a 7/16 wrench, because you have only so many seats available to you if you're a specialist. You're trying to make the Olympic team. So the more things you can do well, the more opportunities are available to you throughout your career, wherever you are.
So true. Do you have a favorite seat in the 8?
Well, I can now say officially I've raced in every seat in the 8 as of head of the Charles last year. So, gosh, I mean, they're all pretty great. I do like stroking. I always stroked in high school, and I stroked a lot in college, and most of the years I was in the 4 on the national team, I also stroked. But I also really enjoy bow, and I like being in the middle of the boat too. So I think it's a good thing if you like every seat.
You sound very easy to please. That's fantastic. You can come row with me any day. Moving on then to some of the questions that we've had from listeners. A lady from a Bunbury Rowing Club in Australia called Glynis has written in asking, what in your opinion has the biggest impact on boat speed in a women's 8? And then she qualifies that by saying, is there a difference between elite level and club level?
Oh gosh. I spent a season actually rowing with a club here in the United States back when I was in college, and obviously had some tremendous women who really helped me accelerate my development. So I don't think it's necessarily like club level is all that different. I mean, besides the training level, I think throughout my experience rowing in 8s, the number one thing is that you're all doing whatever you're doing together, and making sure that, no matter what your rowing background is, whatever the technique is that your coach wants you to do is what you're all doing. The more it's individualized, the slower it's going to be. But I think, there may, at the club level, you may have a bigger boost if you're already doing that. If you're able to increase your training volume a little bit, whereas typically at the elite level, everyone's doing a tremendous amount of training, so the focus tends to be more than on honing technique. I guess that's a very general answer.
Give us an example. Can you think of a situation when you were new into a crew, or it was a new pull together of a new lineup?
Sure. A lot of teams that I've been on, something that's really helpful is to do the the pair add-in, and to do, sort of, not, I don't want to say odd pairs, but within the boat, and to just, to the extent that you can see what the person in front of you is doing, to try and have it be that you're all doing the same thing rather than playing telephone. So being able to work on a technique when it's just a pair rowing in an 8, and feel how heavy it is and how much it slows down, and then to maintain the pickup and the stroke profile that you're working on, and then do it pair by pair, and then go back to the original pair and have everyone add in and maintain the speed as the technique as the speed increases, and working through like that. I feel like that's always a tremendously helpful drill.
Do you find that when you're actually doing that drill, you have to use all of your senses, so feeling, listening, and sort of kinesthetic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think sometimes I take that process a little bit for granted, but certainly feeling what the water is feeling like against your blade. Being aware to the extent in your peripheral that you can see, your hand or your hands raising, and as you're looking at the person in front of you, or the stroke seat or 7 seat's hands, and just really being to the extent that you can relaxed enough to feel what the boat is doing underneath you, so that you're as hard as you're working on the drive, you're able to find stability and relaxation on the recovery.
Tell me, where do you guys train? Are you on a river or a lake?
So we train, the women's team trains primarily on lakes. We're on a lake with a fairly small amount of flow in New Jersey, and then during the winter the team is based in San Diego, where it's a lake with almost no flow.
Wow. How long's the lake?
Not as long as you'd like it to be. We have in New Jersey it's about 4.5 kilometers each way, and then in San Diego it's just over 3 kilometers. So a lot of turning for us.
Yeah. But I bet you do the usual pattern of camps and stuff, so you're not always in your home territory.
Yeah, not quite as much fun as GB in terms of camps. We usually have 1 to 2 camps per year. But and then the last year I've been based in Washington D.C. So I didn't go to any camps this winter, which we've had a lot of snow and probably 2 or 3 months of the river being frozen. So it's been a lot of training indoors, but it's going well. Sorry, I'm just gonna grab one thing really quick.
So any of the listeners, if you feel that you'd like to add another question to the dialogue that we're having, there's a chat window on the right-hand side of the ustream.tv webpage, and feel free just to write your question in, and if I can slip it into the dialogue, I will.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Your new puppy playing up.
Yes. We seem to always be able to find the loudest toys right when it's to be quiet.
So tell me a little bit about the organisation and structure of US Rowing. Are you a full-time athlete, or do you actually have a job as well, and you only have a sort of part-time wage from US Rowing?
Right. So actually right now I don't have a wage from US Rowing. For the first time in a long time, I was a full-time athlete starting in 2009. And before that I was always in school. And in the US we're not allowed to, there's a lot of restrictions on what you can accept financially as a amateur athlete while you're a student. But typically for us, women and men will row in college and then graduate and join a club or join a national training center. And then sort of if you perform well, then you get funding and insurance. And some of that is just kind of set levels, and some of it's performance based. And then like most other countries, there's a financial award if you get an Olympic medal.
Mm-hmm.
and then also for medals at the World Championships in Olympic events. So that's kind of fiscally
how it works.
Structure. Yeah. So right now I'm choosing to work a real person job and train in the morning and the evening outside of that, and then save up and then rejoin the group is my plan.
Fantastic. And you were last year, you were rowing in the women's quad.
Yes.
And this year, do you know where you're heading, or is this all very much up in the air?
I'm not sure at this point. What my coach and I have talked about is I might just be doing national competitions this year and continuing to work through the summer, and then joining the group again in the fall. But it's, I feel like it's in the rowing world, you're always flying by the seat of your pants a little bit. So
you have go on.
Oh, no, please.
You have selection regattas in April, May, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So, yeah, we'll be selecting our single and pair at the first regatta, and then I believe the double will be coming out of the second regatta. Mm-hmm. And then all of our larger boats this year are coming from results in the pair. So the women's quad and the women's 8 will be selected based on pair results from this upcoming regatta.
Pair results or double results?
Pair results.
Okay, yeah. So you have to sweep in order to get into the sculling boats. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Now, we have a couple of questions from the chat window. The first question asks, how much greater volume did you train when you moved up from college rowing to elite rowing in terms of the number of outings you did?
Right. It's it's a lot. I think it depends a little bit. There's some national teams, like I believe the Danish national team, where it's they say they do an hour of training a day, and for most teams it's quite a bit more than that. So I would say typically in college you're doing one session a day, maybe 2 sessions, and for the national team you're typically doing 2 to 4, and the sort of maintaining the same volume as college. But you do practices that are much longer, and you're doing more sort of complex movements with weights, and also a lot more time is spent helping your body recover in terms of physical therapy and doing things like yoga. So it really translates into almost a if not actually a full-time job in terms of the hours per week. So, and most teams also, as the Olympic cycle goes on, each year requires more training to build on the year before. So, in the Olympic year, you're going to be looking between the training and recovery between, I think, 45 and 60 hours a week. So it's quite a bit more than university, and probably not advisable to try and attempt that while you're in university.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So, for your own rowing career path, who was the person who was your biggest encourager or influencer in making your decision when you did step up to the national team?
Oh, goodness. It was actually quite a few people. My college coach, Liz O'Leary, rowed on the U.S. team as Liz Hills back in sort of my parents' era, yes. And it was just tremendous. Primarily sculling rower, and she was. My college, Harvard, has a very strong tradition of women there doing Olympic rowing, basically dating back to the first Olympics where women were rowing. And so she was very supportive and instrumental in me being able to do that. I also was lucky enough to have 2 other coaches in Boston, Lyndon Murray, who coaches the freshman Harvard lightweight men, and she's a longtime U.S. national team athlete as a lightweight. And then a fellow by the name of Dave Martin, who was actually coached for the British team for a while, and then coached Zeno Mueller for a couple years after he won his Olympic gold medal. So they were both very positive and encouraging, and kind of when you're in that range where you're like, I'm excited about this, but I don't know if it's dumb to be hopeful. They were very, all three of them were extremely encouraging.
Fantastic. And I'm sure that you yourself are now a figurehead for others who are coming through behind you.
I like to think so. I'm always so excited. I kind of have a little portfolio of athletes who've contacted me at, when they've been high schoolers or in college or, just graduating and ask for advice. And I'm always really happy to help people in any way I can. And, then I have, results to follow and people to check up on. And, it's great as an athlete to sort of see people progress through some of the same stuff. And, when people are bold enough to ask the questions that you had and they actually ask them, you're more than happy to give answers. So
fabulous. Back to some practical stuff. Tom from Pensacola Rowing Club in Florida is asking, how do you handle boat wakes, bow or beam?
So I'm going to need a little translation from you guys on that. I'm not sure what
bow means, do you when you've got a wake, do you take it square onto the wave? Or beam is, do you take it side onto the boat? So do you prefer to ride the wave head on, or do you tend to turn your boat sideways to the wave so that your whole boat goes over the wave in one movement? Right.
Well, I guess, Tom from Pensacola, that really depends on what size boat you're in and how big the wake is. In a single, you're going to have to gauge whether, taking it head on will get you through it more quickly, but it might swamp your boat. So I'd say generally the bigger the boat, the more able you are to sort of take it head on. And if it's a huge roller and you're in a single, it also might flip you. So I think it's individual preference with the caveat safety first.
So talking about flipping boats, do you remember the first time you fell out of a single?
I do. It was, I insisted my dad show me sculling. So he helped me get a boat down and put it in, and actually went out successfully, even though my oarlocks were backwards. So I made it safe. And then the second time I went out, I did okay. And the third time I went out, I screwed up coming into the dock. And so I kind of had my blade sort of out, and I was leaning and reaching, and I just plopped right in. But thankfully that was Southern California. The second time I flipped was I went out into the middle of the college racing course, where the college men were doing selection pieces, and right in the middle of it, as they were coming down, I managed to flip my single as well. So instead of helping me back in, the coach was so pissed off, he just scooped my single across the front of his launch and drove me, the whatever it was, 3K back to my dock, and just kind of dumped me out unceremoniously. So that was a more eventful flipping.
Ritual humiliation, I think, is part of any sport.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, we have a question from Rob, who doesn't actually say where he's from. He's asking about the drive sequence technique. What type of drive sequences do you recommend? A more overlap drive with legs and body together at the same time, or sequenced with a push of the legs first and then a body swing?
So again, I think this is sort of whatever your coach says you're working on is gonna make the boat go fastest. The rowing that I worked on doing for a long time, I love to watch videos of really great rowing, and highly recommend, if listeners don't already obsessively watch YouTube videos when you're trying to make technical changes, or refer your rowers to them when you're trying to get them to make it. The visual stuff is very, very helpful for me. So when I was sweep rowing, I worked for a long time on rowing in a similar way to the Romanian women's pair from 2004. I think that for sweep rowing, especially small boat sweep rowing, is some of the best technical rowing for women that I've ever seen. And obviously there's a tremendous amount of if you're looking at Australian or especially the Aussie pair for men. that's another technical focus that we've had. And I obviously the Kiwis are doing a great job. Just the last, this last quadrennium and beyond, and certainly our I think any boat, any eight would benefit from imitating the German men's eight. That is some really tremendous rowing leading up to 2012. So, and I think it depends also on if you're in a single, I think it's obviously the rower, based on the rower's physiology. For me, I find that to generate the most efficient thing, it's a much more overlapped drive. I think much more about using my body earlier in the stroke than I do when I'm sweep rowing. But I've also felt like some of the best rowing that I've done has also been a very sequenced drive. So I would say playing around with it, and I've trained with the Row Perfect also to sort of learn about what when I think I'm doing one thing, is that actually what I'm doing during the stroke, and looking at the force curve to see what actually does give me the most efficient curve for the effort I'm putting in.
Oh, interesting. Can you describe the curves that you've used recently? For me, when I came in, it was much more basic in terms of trying to just smooth out the curve that I have, and I think overall just making it look like the curve in your logo. That's very complimentary.
Yeah, but for me, a lot of work that I do and have done in the eight, it's having a very powerful initial connection with the legs is very helpful, and it's very effective if you can do that all together. If you do that in the single, you're just going to kind of not be able to keep up with it. So I think one of the hallmarks of a experienced rower is that when your coach yells at you the second day for doing what they told you to do the day before, you can A, know what they're talking about, and B, change it. So I think the Row Perfect has been a very helpful tool for playing around and seeing what you can do with the different parts of the drive.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, Emma in Pittsburgh, who's at Duquesne University, I probably pronounced that wrong, she's asking, how do you get through your darkest days, such as when you want to give up because of the pain?
I'm going to hope that Emma is talking about erg tests, not something more depressing. I think one of the things that is helpful when you're discouraged as an athlete, you feel like you're not where you want to be, is reaching out to those people. So the mentors that are there and have offered guidance and support. And if that's your coach, that's your coach. If it's not your coach, your parents or your significant other who's probably sick of you talking about rowing. But I think the other thing is a very helpful skill is to be able to reframe as much as possible failure as an opportunity to get better. And it's certainly easier said than done a lot of the time. But everyone in their rowing career is going to lose at some point. Probably everyone in their rowing career is not going to make a boat that they want to be in, or not.
I've lost audio.
That is a chance for you to learn from it. So, the first time I broke a rib, okay, my learning from that was that that's superhuman, and I have to take an afternoon off or a day off per week, just like everyone else. And not making the 8 in 2008. Okay, I could move a boat really well, but I couldn't move it consistently well. So that was one of the things that I worked on leading up to 2012. So it's I think always remembering that rowing is just a sport, as crazy as we get about it.
Mm-hmm.
But also being able to be passionate about it and reach out to others who know how much it means to you, so that they can tell you, hey, like, this is, you're not back to square one. This is one step backwards.
Do you think, does an experience like not making the crew in 2008 really make you reflect on how many aspects of your performance have to come together and all be good at the same time in order to make the crew?
Absolutely. I mean, I talked to our coach actually leading up to 2012 about, what do I need to do? Like, do I need to have this erg score? Do I need to have this result at the selection? Or, like, what is it going to be? And, he's like, all those things are nice and good. But one of the biggest things that you can do is to build your own momentum. So if your overall trajectory, on the team is positive, and you're consistently performing, and you're someone that people want in their boat because you make boats go fast, that is, that's the best position to put yourself in. That gives you the most opportunities. But, certainly with the Olympics, it's, you hope that it's the best person who wins on the day, but it is the person who is the fastest and the best on that race course, in that race, on that day, and there's luck in that. There's luck on, what time of year you had your major injury. If you have it right before, if you're Mahe and you get food poisoning, the week of the race or the flu, or, whatever he had in 2008, he's a phenomenal athlete, and even sick, he, still got an Olympic medal, but he wasn't the fastest on that day, and that was what counted, So I think certainly, you have to understand that's part of the keeping it in perspective is, you hope that you can train and to be at a level versus your competition that even if you have your worst day, you're still competitive with them.
That's a great perspective. Thank you. Right, we're now going to hear from our sponsor. This week, we are sponsored by Space Saver Rowing. Are your oars taking up too much space in your boat shed? Are you storing them horizontally? Save space and free up some storage area by switching to Space Saver oar racking. Their ingenious design allows you to store 16 oars in one rack, and it's in a small space. In fact, you can get 64 oars or sculls in 1.5 meters of wall space. That's very compact. Better still, you can take the very back pair of oars out of the rack independently without disturbing those in front. Space Saver sells single racks or a boathouse pack of 4 at a discount. Go to ssrs.net.au for more information. Now, back to Esther Lofgren. One of the listeners has asked a question about how important has nutrition been to you as an elite athlete?
Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to say how important it's been. Like many athletes, I kind of got to this level without thinking too much about what I was eating. I was like, oh, I have some bananas every day, and I try and follow the guidelines about having vegetables and meat and whatever on my plate. But I didn't really see it as being a priority, especially because, a lot of times the more you train, it's kind of calories in, calories burn, you're just trying to figure out how to balance that. And, especially for many athletes who are starting out, you're more concerned about how much the food costs rather than the nutrition contained in it. So, I was actually, my teammates would tease me because I would I'd make these big bowls of oatmeal with milk and be like, maybe put a scoop of protein powder in it and be like, okay, like I'm covered. And, really was very not balanced in my eating. And then in 2010, I actually made a pretty big shift with that in terms of, kind of reading enough articles about stuff to say, oh, okay, maybe it's not a gimmick. Maybe sports nutrition, there's something to it, and really made a commitment to really up my level of fresh fruits, vegetables, organic meat, buttermilk, and really decrease the levels of processed food and processed carbohydrates that I was having. And I just saw immediately a difference in my performance and in my physiology. And that was enough to convince me to keep doing that. So for the most part, I've maintained that through, and I actually had did a food test in January that showed me that I'm actually really sensitive to a lot of good foods. So I've had to sort of mitigate those and take them out of my diet for now. Things like eggs, a lot of vegetables, some fruits. I'm fine actually with gluten, which is the cool thing to be allergic to. I'm not okay with yeast, so no beer, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest, the only way I can really explain it to people who are thinking about should they change their nutrition around is to try it. Like, try it for a week, see what it's like, and see if you feel different, and see what your performance is like. And if you don't notice a difference, you can go back to doing what you were doing, but I can pretty much guarantee you will notice a large difference immediately.
Did you go and buy a book? How did you learn about nutrition at that point when you made the shift?
So the first thing that I had is actually a book. I got the sort of 20-year update of a book my parents used back when they were rowing, called
Nancy Clark?
Sorry?
It wasn't Nancy Clark?
I don't think so. It was called Eat to Win. But it mostly espoused the sort of benefits of eating lean meats and a lot of vegetables, many more vegetables than you think you would eat, and fruit, and just kind of the sort of understanding of healthful eating. And I tried a little bit too, the paleo diet that all the CrossFitters have. It had just become very popular, or was coming onto the scene, and so I tried some of that as well. I think there's certainly something to be said for it. I think it's very hard to eliminate almost all carbohydrate sources as a rower, because you need a lot. But there's, I think for me, the sort of general rule of thumb of when you go to the grocery store, staying around the perimeter and not really venturing into the middle of it. So staying with the produce section and the meat section, and if you use dairy, I'm a big fan of like Greek yogurt and low fat milk or fat free milk. All of those are really, really huge things to have on your training table.
Fantastic. I like the concept of a training table. Like, you train with food. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Now, Jens has sent in a question which is perhaps a little more philosophical than some of the others. He says, what is rowing to you?
Well, whatever it is, I'm hoping I'm doing it for the rest of my life. I mean, I think it is what it is to each person. For me, it's certainly part of what I identify myself as, is a rower. It's what I've done kind of professionally for the last decade. I think it's a great tool to learn lessons about life. I've certainly learned many things in my sport that I use at work every day, and use in my interactions with others and all that. And I think it's a great tool to teach things, and for kids to experience what teamwork is, and see for the first time in their life, putting work in towards a goal, and being able to accomplish it as an individual and as part of a team. So for me, it's that, and I'm sure for other people, it's more than that as well.
It's very interesting how the deep engagement with rowing is something that sometimes been described as a disease or a bug that you catch. And we got an email 2 weeks ago from a reader who said, "Hi, I'm 52, I'm 6'2", and I really, really, really want to get selected for the novice men's 8 for my rowing club. What do I need to do?" And it just makes me smile with pleasure and enjoyment that someone else has figured out the fun things that can be done in this sport.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. If I didn't mention it, it's also fun. So, yes.
So moving on to Al, who's in Baltimore at Loyola University, who says, there seems to be a high level of burnout among women aged 18 to 20 who stop rowing after their high school rowing experience. How do you suggest young women avoid this before they develop into university level rowers?
Man, well, first of all, I don't know that that's specifically women. I mean, I think that's many athletes who come, who are recruited, I guess, to compete in college. And it was certainly a slap in the face for me to come from my high school where I was, I'm able to take all the hardest classes and I, do all my rowing practices, and then I do extra practices on top of that, and I can do it all, and coming to college and really doing quite badly, and failing a class my first semester, and all that. So I think for what I saw among my peers who came in was that that's a challenge no matter how passionate you are about rowing when you get there. It's hard. It can be really hard to balance. I think I certainly have a lot of teammates who were recruited to row in college and then left the team after the first year, or before they made it through the first year, because they had been maybe more than they knew, competing in rowing to have the opportunity to get accepted to colleges. So I think the level of burnout is much higher if you're not doing it because you love it, doing it as a means to an end. So, but that's true, with people at the elite level of rowing too. If you're not doing it because you love it, it's really hard. Like Emma said, in your darkest days.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because we experienced the same thing, and we always put it down to the fact that at college suddenly you're away from home for the first time. Often, I always describe it as sex and drugs and rock and roll, but of course there are opportunities to try a lot of new things which could look very, very attractive by comparison with getting up early and going rowing in the dark.
Right, but and then on the other hand, a lot of my teammates who are walk-ons, like Susan Francia, obviously a tremendously accomplished athlete. She had done some high school athletics, not rowed. She did her first year at university, and the sex, drugs, rock and roll / just time management was really difficult, and so she actually found that rowing was extremely helpful for giving her a reason to prioritize work and to get it done quickly, and to get to bed and all of that, and then performed really well in both academics and rowing as a student. So yeah. I think it can be both ways.
It's very interesting that I find that sometimes people say, I'm going to stop rowing because I want more time for my studies, and often they don't perform better in their studies because the discipline of rowing has gone, and then their time management goes out of the window.
Exactly.
So moving on to Johnny from Hampton, he says, can you tell me a few of the most important things that you expect from a coach?
Oh, geez. Well, I think as a coach, your goal is the same goal as the athletes, and I think that's very fundamental. But you're, as an athlete, you're trying to get the most out of yourself and to reach your highest level, and then you also want to help everyone else in your boat row the best they can, and do everything together and all of that. And I think with the coach, they sort of have the from the launch more of the 40,000 foot perspective on things. And so as an athlete, at every level I've been at, there have been times when I've been like, I don't know what the coach is doing. This doesn't make any sense. And you don't always get an explanation, but it's always because of that. that view. I think for coaches, the most helpful thing that you often have and that rowers often want is information. I think, you know, people want to feel like their effort and their performance is being seen objectively by the coach. And so I think being able to give people the information that you're using to make decisions from an objective perspective, whether that's just putting up a list of how people did on the erg scores or on the seat racing or whatever. I think if you know, putting that up and saying this is what I'm using to make my decision, is something that's very helpful for athletes. And if that's not what you're using, then to communicate that. And I think having different ways of explaining what you're trying to do is really helpful. And I think that's often why, you know, someone will be coached by one person for a long time and then, you know, move from high school to college, or, you know, college to the national team or something, and then all of a sudden have this big breakthrough, or, you know, go off to a sculling camp or something. And because you're hearing the same thing in a slightly different way. So a coach who has, you know, has different ways of saying stuff, or if nothing else can pull up a video and say, this is what I want you to be doing, you know, is very helpful. I don't know. I think it depends a little bit on what the age group that you're coaching is, whether you're coaching, you know, high school athletes or college athletes or national team athletes or masters athletes. You know, people have different perspectives and priorities that they put on the sport. And if, you know, you're going to make your masters athletes, you know, drop and give you 20 for each minute that someone is late to practice, like they might, you know, just not, you know, that's not the priority at that time. You know, they're there to row and learn and get faster and get better. But, you know, it depends on the group. Maybe that's going to make them stronger as a team. So I think being able to be on board with what your athletes' expectations and hopes are, and communicate with them that your vision is going to help them achieve that in a way that they can buy into it. That's kind of the ideal.
That's a brilliant summary. I really enjoy that, because when you've had more than one different coach, it really does make you realize that there are so many different perspectives, and different coaches can take a very different approach to a lot of the different aspects of training and racing and rowing.
Right.
Moving on to Elizabeth from Rochester, New York, who's in the Pittsford crew. She says, there are so many mental barriers in rowing. When it gets really tough and it seems that you've met your limit, what do you think is the most important element in opening the mental door to meet the next level of challenge?
Oh man. So there's a lot of things. I think that challenging yourself to do stuff that you're uncomfortable with, you know, physiologically and mentally, in places outside of rowing is a really big step in that direction. If you can become someone who is comfortable being uncomfortable, you know, you can, I'm not going to say it's not going to hurt in the third 500, but you can be able to separate a little bit from it and say, okay, like my lungs are dying and my legs are, I think they're going to fall off. They're burning so bad, but like those are sensations. And I know that this is what I'm supposed to be feeling right now. And everyone else is feeling that. And if I can just keep pushing a little bit, you know, they're going to start to slow down, and I'm going to keep holding my speed. So I think that getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I think also, you know, changing around perspective. I kept thinking, I think when I started out, that if I got fitter or I got stronger, it was going to hurt less, and that's never the case. You're just going to go faster as you hurt the same or maybe more. Yeah. So I think you know, getting yourself to the point where you're not wishing that it's going to be easy. You're just knowing that it's what you're doing is worth it, and it's going to be taking you to where you want to go. But there's all these wonderful things about our sport. When you're in a boat with other people, we always, everyone says in rowing, like, that when you stop being able to pull for yourself, you know that you can't let down, the woman sitting in front of you, the woman sitting behind you. You can't let down your coach who's watching. There's so many people that you're accountable to and that you want to see succeed, that you keep giving everything you've got. So I think being aware that it's not just you, even though, it can feel very lonely in whatever seat you're in, but that you're going with other people. And when you're doing an erg test, like, thinking about that you're racing with these people, not just racing against them. A lot of times you can find a little bit more speed and more toughness out of that.
Fantastic. A last question from Morgan is, what type and brand of protein powder do you use?
Oh gosh. So we, like most elite athletes, and I think many college athletes, we get drug tested very regularly, which I really support, but which also makes us pretty cautious about endorsing any supplements. So I'm sponsored by a company that sponsors a lot of Olympic athletes and does very rigorous testing. There's some of their products that I use. The company is called Shackley. I don't specifically use their protein powder, but many of their nutritional supplements have protein in it. I think it's protein powder is a weird thing, and I can go way off on this because you're not, depending on what you're trying to do. Protein powder can be a good thing for recovery, but especially for women, there's been many fewer studies about what the best proportion of protein and carbohydrates in terms of recovery from weight training or just regular training sessions is. So, but I also have a company I work with that's called Pocket Protein, and they have a very high quality protein. It just comes in these little packets, so you don't even have to blend it. That is very, very highly tested. One of my teammates, Aaron Cafaro, actually has a protein that's more oriented towards sort of more lifting and the sort of the CrossFit stuff called 3 Fuel, and that uses a specific type of protein that's better metabolized. It's metabolized more quickly, and it has three different types of protein and fat to kind of give your body the maximum boost. And then I also have found a lot of success just using high quality whey protein isolate from companies that are very rigorous in how they test it. So basically companies that do not make, explode muscle, whatever, those kind of supplements. So I've used Whole Foods brand and Trader Joe's and things like that as well.
Brilliant. Now I've got a question for you. Have you ever had any thoughts about what sort of equipment changes or improvements you'd like to ask for from some of the rowing equipment manufacturers? Anything that really bugs you that you think, if only they could fix that?
Gosh. I mean, everything keeps changing. I guess that's how I know that I've been in the sport for a long time. I would like to see a little bit more flexibility for the sort of balance point between adjustable feet and adjustable slides and movable riggers in boats. Some of my teammates and I who are on the taller women's side don't always fit right into some of the top racing boats because of our leg length and the size of our feet. So
go on, tell us how long your legs are.
I don't know it in meters. I have like a 37-inch inseam, but then I have size like 12 or 13 in men's feet. So I'm yeah. So there's more. I don't know. Yeah. We're funny sized, and that's why we row, right?
It is. It's an advantage.
But other than that, everyone's doing well, and I feel like I need to keep up with the good products that people are putting out. So
that's fantastic. So that's actually the last question that I've got for you at the moment. With regard to the viewers, Esther has very kindly donated either a men's or a women's Olympic shirt from the USA team as our monthly prize draw this month. And so thank you very much for that. And make sure, if you'd like to be in the draw to win, that your name is signed up to the Row Perfect newsletter, because that is the list of people who get selected from. Again, Esther, thank you so very much indeed for joining us here on Rowing Chat. We've had a ball. I really enjoy hearing your insights into a lot of your own personal experiences, and I know our audience have loved it too. Anyone who wants to follow Esther online, her website is estherlofgren.blogspot.co.nz, and that's up on the screen now. Please get in touch, track her progress, and really good luck. And I hope you get back on the team this year.
Thank you so much. Me too.